Hello, welcome to Cabin Fever Crochet with me, Helene. Today I have a really fun stitch, works up quickly and can be used for a variety of projects. What I have in front of me is a queen-sized bedspread that I'm working on, but you can make this in just about any weight and type of yarn and as long as wide as you want it. So it could be a throw, a coverlet, a scarf, or a cowl even. So what I'm going to do is work up a decent size sample, go through that with you, 2 full sequences so to help you get the rhythm and the hang of it, and then show you how I change up the very last row just a little bit to give a nice finishing edge that will most resemble the beginning row. And then there is a bit of a difference if you decide to work up a scarf and want more of a scalloped edge, and I will show you that later. This is in multiples of 6 plus 1, and it's one of those stitches that the length that you chain is going to be about the length of the body of your work. It really has very little to no shrinkage at all once we start working the stitch. So when I say it's length or width, that will depend if you want to work this horizontal or have the pattern run vertically, which would also give another nice look. This is a 4-row repeat after our initial setup row. And rows 2 and 4 are similar, rows 3 and 5 are similar, with just a little bit of variances of how we begin and end each of those rows. This would be great in a solid color, a variegated, self-striping, a gradient yarn, a marled, or if you have a lot of different colors of yarn, then you can do stripes such as I have. This is done in Lion Brand Heartland, a number 4 worsted. I used most of what I have and just purchased a couple of others to mix those in so I would have a little more range of darker, mid and lighter tones to it. And what I did to have some continuity throughout the pattern, because I have so many different colors going on, is I alternated this burgundy color called Badlands with the cobalt Olympic color in between each section. Now you can make yours however you like. You can make it all the same color if you want. Now this pattern or stitch is the exact same as I showed earlier this year, and I will leave the link for that below if you'd like to check it out again, inserting a picture here. And the only difference in the main body of work was the 4-row repeat pattern. I did 5 times for each rainbow color section, and in the sage color in between each of those I repeated our sequence twice. I changed this up a little bit from the original stitch, which I came across in one of my stitch books, and then with this blanket I made it even better, changed up yet a little bit more, so we would have an even number on each end, which was going to give you more flexibility if you want to add on a border, and any that you choose, it's going to make it a lot easier when you come around to make those corners. I've panned out so you can see more of the blanket, particularly with the edge that I want to show you how nice and neat and clean that is, and it's by using the chainless alternate double crochet method, which I will show you as we get to that point. This way you can add a border or leave it as it is, which I would do if I am making a scarf. And when we get to the scarf portion, then I will show you a couple of different ways where you can finish the ends and have a nice border along the bottom. On this blanket, I am going to do a border all the way around in a separate video when I get to that point. I hope to have this blanket finished, in about a month. That's my plan, as life goes anyway. And I will figure it out when I get there. It's going to be more of a simple plain border because this is a very earthy type blanket, and I don't want to take away from it, want it to blend with. If you have a border that you prefer doing and it works in with the stitch count, absolutely, you can create it however you like and customize and make it your own. Alright, so I'm going to be working in Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn, just some leftover pieces I have. It's a worsted number 4. It calls for an I 5.5 millimeter hook, which is exactly what I'm going to use for the body of the work. However, I'm going up one size for the beginning chain, and for the first turning stitch will help keep it flat and to retain the full height, keep it from curling in or turning under. I recommend a couple of stitch markers also, and I'll show you where and why as we get going. So I'm going to get a clean slate here, zoom in a little bit. Alright, grab your yarn, and before you get started, if you're working with multiple colors, think about that, the type of order you might want to go in, or at least for your beginning row, and that's what the same color I'm going to end it in also. Alright, so you start with a slip knot, however you like to make it. Leave enough tail so you have plenty to sew those ends nice and securely. And I am going to do my beginning foundation chain in the larger hook of the two, and then again work that first stitch, and then I will switch to my I 5.5 millimeter for the rest of the work. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do my 30. Okay, so I have my 30 plus 1. And if you're making a larger project like a blanket or even a throw, do your multiples of 6. You can always double check your count afterwards too, but sometimes I just add in an extra couple of chains just to be sure I have enough and have not miscounted. Can always take carefully, that is, take that little knot out at the end and pull that back, take out those extra chains. Alright, so we are going to work into the back bumps. That's going to give you a really nice full stitch, clean edge across the bottom, which will also help resemble the end stitch, in addition to giving you a good base to work from in case you want to add a border all the way around, or if you want to do the other option for the scarf, having a scalloped edge, you have a full stitch to connect and work across. Okay, so we are going to work into the back bump. So if you turn that over, you'll see the little raised bumps or the third loop on the back, and that's what we're going to work into, going all the way across. Skip the first 3 chains from the hook, 1, 2, 3, and then work a double crochet into that back bump, and the first 3 skipped stitches do count as your first double crochet. Alright, now I'm going to switch and go to the hook, the smaller of the two, for the rest of the work, and then go ahead and work 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 chains into the back bump. So now you have 5 double crochet, counting the chain 3 at the end. Now we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and then place 1 double crochet in each of the next 5 chains. The beginning is always a little harder for me, at least, to hang on to. Alright, so now we're going to repeat that sequence. Chain 1, skip 1, and place 1 double crochet into each of the next 5. And that is what you're going to do all the way across. And then double crochet in each of the last 5 stitches. Alright, and there's our repeat. 5 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1. And now if you are working in a solid, or you're going to carry on for some time with the yarn you started this beginning setup row in, then you just continue on with that color. However, if you want to change colors, then in the last leg of your stitch, before you pull through, you yarn over and pull through the last 2, drop the first yarn, pick up your new yarn, and bring that through as your last stitch. And then what I do, I'll cinch that down a little bit, but not too tight. I cinch down both the working yarn of my new color and the working yarn that I just dropped, and then I will tie a square knot right over left, left over right, or in this case the other way around, doesn't matter, but that gives you a nice secure square knot. And if I don't cinch my yarn down too tight, then when I weave in my ends, I can give that just a gentle little tug, and it'll pull right inside the base stitches and hide that really well. It makes it smooth and flat. And our beginning row 1 is on the right side of the work. Now we're going to begin row 2 for the wrong side. And you can begin your first stitch a few ways. You can do the basic chain 3, which would count as your first double crochet, but I really like having a full stitch, which is going to give a nice clean edge and gives you the option to add a border or not if you want. If you're doing a scarf, you may not need to do that. So if you have a particular chainless double crochet starting method that you prefer, you can do that. I'm going to show you what I do here, and I like it. It just gives a very full stitch and looks most like a double crochet without added bulk. Alright, so I raise up the hook to the height of a double crochet. I secure the top of the loop with my thumb. I take my hook, turn it upside down, and I go around backwards. Hang on to that, because if you don't, the whole thing will come undone. Then I go into my stitch, pull up a loop. Now I have essentially 3 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through the first, go around the back of the loop on my hook, and now I have 2. You can let go of that, yarn over, and pull through the last 2. Alright, so that is your first double crochet. And then now double crochet into that very same stitch, so you have 2 now, and then chain 1, skip 1 double crochet, and then single crochet into the next. Alright, we're going to chain 2, skip the next 2, and then work 3 double crochet into this chain 1 space. Oh, and then at the beginning here, if you're working a chainless double crochet such as this, if you're not familiar with it, you can see clearly here with this type of yarn that it creates a V that looks just like all the other V's going across. But if you're not entirely sure, if you want to really mark that spot, because sometimes it can shrink down a little as you are manipulating your yarn, you can just pop a stitch marker in there to mark where you're going to work into as you come back around. Alright, so now working all the way across up until we get to the last 5 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2 again, skip 2, and into the next, which is the center double crochet of that set of 5, and we're going to single crochet into that middle double crochet, chain 2, and again work 3 double crochet into that chain 1 space, and that's it. It's a repeat for row 2. And then here I am to my last 5, so we're going to chain 2, skip 2, into the next, place 1 single crochet, then chain 1 only, and at the very end, this is the only place where I have, that was my beginning, skipped chain 3, so at the very top, the 1, 2, 3rd chain up, place 2 double crochet, go through both loops, there's 1, and then your second one, right in the same spot. Always make sure to bring your loops up to the same height so they're nice and even. So that's what we did at the beginning. We have our 2 double crochet and our chain 1, and this is what we did at the end. And now for row 3, we are going to turn, and now we're back on the right side again, and again begin with an alternate double crochet. And once you practice that a few times and get the hang of it, it really becomes second nature, or at least it does to me. Alright, so now we're going to double crochet into the next double crochet, alright, and double crochet into this chain 1 space. So on row 3 you will have 3 double crochets in a row, and this is where our repeat begins, row 2. And if you want, you can pop a stitch marker there so you know that is the beginning of your repeat. So until you work this enough and get the hang of the pattern, and even as much as I've done it, sometimes I'll take a break and go back, and this gives me a place to remember what the beginning of each row is like. Now we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip that single crochet, and into the chain 2 space we're going to work 1 double crochet, and then we're going to work 1 double crochet in each of these 3 double crochets, and then another one into the next chain 2 space. And this whole set will be 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that begins our sequence repeat. Alright, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one goes into that chain 2 space, chain 1, again skip the single crochet, that completes our first sequence, and then we begin again with 1 double crochet into the next chain 1 space, and then again 1 in each of these next set of 3 double crochet, so that makes 4. Alright, and then our 5th one goes into the next chain 2 space, chain 1, skip over the single crochet, and work your 5. 1 that's in the chain 2 space, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you repeat across to the last 3 double crochets, and on this row you're going to chain 1, you're going to skip this double crochet and you will place 1 double crochet into the chain 1 space and 1 into each of the last 2. So there's a double crochet and then 1 into the top of the alternate double crochet, which, see, when I said earlier, it can shrink down a little bit. So if you're not familiar with the placement, that's where that stitch marker comes in handy. Alright, make sure you bring the stitch up to the height of the rest. Okay, so now you have the 3 double crochet you began with and 3 that you ended with. Now we're going to begin row 4, and row 4 is very similar to row 2 except for how we begin and we end. Chain 1 and turn. Chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and single crochet into that very first stitch. Chain 1, skip the next 2 double crochet and place 3 double crochet into the chain 1 space. Alright, and now again we're going to chain 2, and here we are, the set of 5 double crochet, so we skip the first 2 and we're going to work that single again right into the center of that set of 5. Chain 2, skip 2, and place those 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space, and that is our sequence all the way across until we get up to those last 3 double crochets. Alright, so chain 2, skip 2, single crochet in that center double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 3 double crochet into this chain 1 space. Work my last 3 double crochet into the chain 1 space, and then as we did at the beginning, we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip these 2 double crochet and single crochet into the top of that chainless double crochet. Okay. And that completes row 4. Now for row 5, turn, and again row 5 now is similar to row 3, and we're going to start again with our set of 5 double crochets separated by the chain 1, skip 1. Begin with a chainless double crochet, work that into the very first stitch. So 2, 3, 4, and 5 are our repeat rows. And we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the chain 1 space at the beginning, and then now we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 double crochets, and then 1 double crochet into the chain 2 space, which gives us our 5 double crochet at the beginning. And even though there's a chain 1 here, it all works out very nicely without any big gaps. It's one of the changes I did. Alright, and then now we will begin our sequence of 5 again, just like we did right here on row 3. Chain 1, skip the single crochet, start your set of 5 with the double crochet into that next chain 1 space, and 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 double crochets, and then your last, as part of this set of 5 sequence, into the chain 2 space. And repeat that again. Chain 1, skip the single, there's 1 double crochet into the chain 2 space, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5 into the next chain 2 space. Okay, here I am coming up on the end, chain 2, double crochet, 2, there's 3, 4, and because we're at the end, we're going to skip that chain 1 like we did here at the beginning, and we're going to place a double crochet into that single crochet from the previous row. Now what I did on the blanket is on the every row 5, because we're not counting this beginning setup row here, all right? So 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's a 4-row repeat. So on the last row across, that is where I put that dividing color. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It is up to you. That's how I got all that separation and the look that I did. Okay, so now I want to repeat the set again. So I'm going to put a stitch marker. This is the beginning of my sequence of the 4-row repeat, and here is the end. Okay, so now I'm just going to flow through this with less explanation of what I'm doing and why, just so you can see, get the rhythm as I had mentioned. All right, so our repeat begins with row 2. Remember, the odd numbers are on the right side. This is row 5, and the even numbers are going to be on the wrong side. Okay, so here we go. Turn your work. Going to work a chainless double crochet into the first stitch, and then work another double crochet right into there. Okay, again we chain 1. We're going to skip that first double crochet, single crochet into the next, and now we do our chain 2, place 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into that center group of 5, chain 2, skip 2, 3 single crochets into the space. And that's our repeat all the way across on row 2. And when you get to the last 5 double crochet, you chain 2, skip 2, 1 single crochet into the next, chain 1, skip 1 into the top of your alternate double crochet. You place again those 2 double crochets. And for row 3, turn your work. Work an alternate double crochet. Double crochet into the next double crochet, and into that chain 1 space. Okay, so double crochet in the first stitch, into the next, and into the chain 1 space. So if you go back and look, okay, here is the row we began with 3 double crochet. All right, and now you chain 1, you skip that single crochet, and you're going to work your set of 5 again, beginning in that chain 2 space. That's 1, and then the next 3, 1 in each of the next 3 double crochets, and the 5th one in the chain 2 space. Chain 1, skip the single, and work your 5 into the chain 2 space, 1 in each of the next 3 double crochets, and 1 in the next chain 2 space. So there's my next set of 5. You repeat this across, chain 1, skip the single, work the 5 beginning in the next chain 2 space, 1 in each of the next 3 double crochets, and your 5th in the chain 2 space. Alright, so that's row 3, the second row in our sequence. Okay, and here I am up to my last single crochet. There's that chain 1 and the 2 double crochet. So now I'm going to chain 1, work 1 double crochet into this chain 1 space, and 1 double crochet into each of the next 2. Here's the top of the last full double crochet, and this is the top of that alternate double crochet, which does get a little scrunched down, and why it's helpful to have that stitch marker sometimes. Okay, and now row 4, back on the wrong side again as we turn, chain 1, again does not count as a stitch, place a single crochet into that first stitch, chain 1, we're going to skip the next 2, and then work 3 double crochet into the next. And now we repeat the chain 2, skip 2, and here we have our set of 5 double crochets. So this is where we work that single crochet into the center, chain 2, skip 2, 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space, chain 2, 1 single crochet into the center, chain 2, 3 double crochet into the chain 1 space, and that's the repeat. And then your last 3 double crochets into the last chain 1 space, going to chain 1, skip the first 2 double crochets in that last set of 3. Sorry, I hope that's not too much of a distraction, those end pieces, and then work 1 single crochet into that last alternate double crochet. Okay, so now we're on row 5, our last row and our set of 4 repeat. Now again, you do your alternate double crochet instead of the chain 3, and then you skip the chain 1 space, and then you double in the next 3. Here we're doing our set of 5, and then double crochet into that chain 1 space. Alright, so chain 1, skip the single crochet, and then again your set of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into the next chain 2 space, chain 1, skipping the single, and then you repeat and do your 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, you repeat this across to the end into the last set, and I'll meet you there. Chain 1 again, and then to do your final set of 5, as we did at the beginning, you're going to double crochet now into this last chain 2 space, and again 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 double crochets. We're going to skip the chain 1 and then just double crochet into that single crochet. That completes our repeat. Now this blends pretty well if you're just doing one solid color. You may not need to do this little adjustment that I made. Sorry, my table's a little jiggly outside on the deck here. But if you are working in a different color, then you might want to do this. For your very last row of your entire work to help resemble the look of this. After you've finished row 4, done the single crochet, you're going to change colors again. So as I did before, complete the first portion, and on the last leg of it, you're going to grab the new yarn, pull that through, and that completes your stitch. And then as before, I'm going to cinch down the working yarn of both yarns, the one I'm dropping, the one I'm beginning with, and this will be my tail after I cut it. So then I'm going to make another square knot, and again I'm not going to cinch that down real tight. I'm going to cinch my knot down tight, the knot portion, but not cinch the 2 ends before I knot it down tight to the base. That way it allows me a little bit of slack to be able to pull and tuck those in. That is actually what I meant, and to clarify that a little bit from before. Alright, so now we're going to repeat row 5. It's very similar. The only difference is instead of when we get to the chain 2 portion going across, we're not going to work around the stitch, but we're going to work through the top of the chain into both loops. Okay, so we're going to turn and then go ahead and work the alternate chainless double crochet, if that's the method that you are using, just as we did before. We're going to skip that chain 1 space, work your usual double crochets into each of these next 3 double crochets, and then now there's the 4 to get our 5th double crochet in a row. We're going to work into the very first chain, the chain that is closest to the set of the double crochets on each side, and we'll be skipping the second chain that is next to the single crochet, and that way it keeps the 5 double crochets together. Otherwise, if we worked in this one, it just creates too much of a gap. Okay, so work into that first chain, going through the top of both loops, and then as we did before, you're going to go ahead, chain 1, skip the single crochet, and then work into the top of that second chain, making your double crochet, and then into the next 3, 1 double crochet each. Just as we've been doing, the only difference is working through the 2 loops at the top of the chain. So we have our 4, and then to complete our 5th double crochet in the set, then again you just work into both loops, the top of the chain, and it's a little fiddly going across, but it's only 1 row out of all of these, and it creates such a clean look that again resembles the beginning setup row 1. Okay, and then you just carry on with your chain 1 and then double crochet into the second chain, skipping over the single crochet, and that's the first double crochet in your set of 5, and just continue on from there. And I will meet you at the end and finish that up with you. And then I'll show you the option for the scarf. Alright, I'm at the end. I finished my last usual set of the 5 double crochet. I've chained 1, and now to finish the end portion I will again double crochet into the top of the chain, into the next 3 double crochets. Now I skip this chain 1 just like we did at the beginning, and then double crochet right into the last stitch, which is the single crochet from the previous row. Make sure you bring up your loops to the height of all the rest of your stitches. This way, working into the top of every stitch, it makes an even bridge between the last row and the row before, and again most resembles your beginning setup row. Alright, so now I'm going to take this out and then show you for the scalloped edge that you can do for the scarf. So if you want the scalloped edge, actually if you want this edge, you can leave it like this for a scarf. If you like the straight edge, you can leave it as it is, or you can add fringe. These are good spaces for that. To create your scarf with a scalloped edge, I'm going to work it in 2 parts using the first setup row from where you measure in the center back of your neck, and you're going to work just as we have to your desired length. But instead of ending on row 5, you will end on row 4, which creates a really lovely self-scalloped border that you have probably noticed as you were working the pattern. What I would do is, once you've gone to that desired length and have completed the one side, go ahead, cut your yarn, sew in your ends. And then I would take a steam iron, if you have one, and set it on whatever temperature the yarn calls for. Hold it above a little bit and then just back and forth till it's damp, and while it is still warm, then smooth the yarn out. You can tug a little bit on the ends, not to stretch it out, but to relax the fibers, open them up, and help define the ends. Let that lay flat, air dry. If you don't have an iron or a steamer, you can use a mister bottle, or you can just dampen it and then do the same, smooth it out, pull on those, and then I would pin it. I would pin the 2 ends and then the center double crochet stitch and each scallop across, and again lay that flat to dry. So then to create the other side, if you remember at the beginning I said that the odd numbered rows, which are the rows with a set of 5 double crochets, that is on the right side of your work, and then the even numbered rows, those are on the wrong side. Well, for ending with the scallop, I'm going to reverse that because I want the scallop edge to be on the right side. That is going to be facing you, facing outward. Okay, so what we're going to do to reconnect is you turn the work around, having your last row number 4 on the right side, the outside of the work facing up, facing you. All right, go over to the end, the first set of the double crochets, which are now in the reverse order. This was our very beginning, the chain 3 at the beginning. And so now the top is on the bottom connected to the row below. We are going to count up from here, and I'm going to use a different colored yarn going back to this dark turquoise so you can see that well. So you begin counting to the top of the chain 3, which is the chain right next to your double crochet, but if yours is not so easily defined, you start with the bottom, count that as 1, 2, and then 3. And we are going to begin, so this is our first setup row 1, and we're just going to simply repeat, do our 4 repeat rows, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So beginning with row 2, and I'm just going to show you how I work across this, and then I'll leave the rest up to you to complete. And because we are not already connected and have made that turn, I'm going to chain 1 here instead, and I'm going to cinch that down to the base of this first stitch. And then now for row 2, we're going to work our alternate double crochet right into that same stitch, and you can work around the tail if you like to help lock that in. And then as we did before, we're going to double crochet again into that same stitch. I'm going to work around that tail. Just helps begin weaving in those ends. And as we did before, we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet into the next, and make sure you go through both of those top loops. And that's why we worked in the back bump to create a full stitch. Okay, and now you chain 2, you skip 2, and then you just go ahead and work your 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space. Chain 2 again, skip 2, and work into both of those 2 loops with your single crochet. Chain 2, skip 2, 3 double crochets into the chain 1 space. And there we have it on row 2. I'm going to go ahead, go across. I will meet you at the end, and we'll finish this row together, and then you can rewind on the timestamps that I have provided for you in detail and watch rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 again. And here I am to my last 5 double crochets. I go ahead, I chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the next, making sure I go through both loops. And now I chain 1 like I did at the beginning, skip 1, and place 2 double crochets into the last. And then you carry on, and then again finish on row 4, and there you will have your 2 ends completely matching the same direction and the same edge coming down both sides of your body, and with a seamless connection between the 2. Okay, my fiber friends, that is it for this tutorial. I sure hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think and if you're going to make it. Well, take care, everyone. As always, come back again next time for more fun stuff together. Alrighty, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.